5 financial principles that survive every collapse. Weimar, Germany, November 1923. A loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. A lifetime of savings, if held in cash, buys nothing. A bank account that could have purchased a house in 1918 can't buy food 5 years later. That's how quickly a stable currency can become worthless paper. Yet some people survived. Some even thrived. Not because they predicted the collapse, but because they followed principles that work in every collapse, regardless of the cause, the country, or the century. Argentina, 2001. Banks close. Deposits are frozen. Dollar accounts are confiscated and forcibly converted into pesos at a rigged exchange rate. Overnight, people lose 2/3 of their savings. Again, some survived. They followed the same principles people followed in Weimar, Germany, in ancient Rome, and in every collapse throughout history. America, 2025. The national debt exceeds $36 trillion. The dollar has lost over 98% of its purchasing power since 1913. Trillions of dollars were created in just a few years. The system is following patterns that have preceded every major currency collapse in history. Whether the reckoning comes in 5 years or 15, the same principles will determine who survives and who loses everything. This is not about getting rich. It's about not losing everything. In every collapse, most people are wiped out, not because they were foolish, but because they relied on strategies that work in normal times and fail catastrophically in crisis. These principles worked in Rome. They worked in Weimar, Germany. They will work again. Before listing them, it's important to understand why principles matter more than tactics. A tactic is specific advice. Buy gold, sell stocks, hold cash, buy crypto. These may work or they may fail, depending on timing and circumstance. A principle is a fundamental truth. It works regardless of the monetary system, the asset class, or the era. Principles worked when gold was money. They worked when paper replaced gold. They will work again no matter how the next collapse unfolds. Most modern financial advice is tactical. It assumes banks remain solvent, governments honor contracts, courts function, and markets stay liquid. In a true collapse, those assumptions break. Principles do not. Principle 1. Hard assets survive. Paper burns. When currencies collapse and governments default, physical assets retain value because they are real.
Paper assets, anything that is merely a claim on something else, fail when those claims can no longer be enforced. In Weimar, Germany, cash savings were destroyed by hyperinflation, but farms, buildings, and factories retained real value. A farm that existed in 1918 still produced food in 1923. Its price in marks exploded, but the asset itself did not change. In Zimbabwe in the 2000s, savings held in currency became worthless, but land, livestock, and equipment preserved wealth because they continued producing food. In Argentina, bank deposits were frozen and confiscated. Physical assets endured. The pattern is consistent. Paper wealth evaporates. Real assets endure. In modern America, most wealth is held in paper claims, stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, and bank deposits. These function only while the system functions. When courts fail, banks collapse, or governments default, those claims disappear. Real estate remains real estate. Gold remains gold. A farm still produces food. When collapse comes, paper burns. Hard assets survive. Principle 2. Own productive assets, not speculative ones. Productive assets generate value independently of market sentiment. Speculative assets are valuable only if someone else will pay more later. During the Great Depression, stock prices collapsed nearly 90%. Speculators were wiped out, but those who owned farms, rental properties, and businesses still received production, food, shelter, and goods people needed. A farm produces food whether markets rise or fall. A rental property provides housing regardless of stock prices. In Venezuela, stock indices soared in nominal terms, but the currency collapsed. Speculators gained nothing in real terms. Meanwhile, owners of bakeries, farms, and transport businesses survived because they produced essentials. In contrast, government bonds and speculative paper claims went to zero when defaults occurred. Today, many assets are speculative, valued primarily on expectation, not production. In collapse, speculation fails, production sustains. Principle 3. Debt destroys you in a collapse. In stable times, debt magnifies gains. In collapse, it guarantees ruin. During the Great Depression, farmers who borrowed to expand lost everything when incomes collapsed, but debts remained fixed. Over 750,000 farms were foreclosed. Debt-free farmers suffered, but they survived. In Argentina, incomes collapsed while dollar-denominated mortgages remained unchanged.
Families lost homes they had paid on for years. Those who owned property outright kept it.
In Greece, incomes fell sharply while mortgage obligations remained. Defaults surged. The myth that inflation helps debtors ignores reality. In real collapses, incomes fall faster than debts adjust. The safest position is zero debt. If you have a mortgage, you do not fully own your home. You hold a leveraged bet that your income remains stable. In a collapse, leverage kills. Debt fuels growth. Debt destroys survival. Principle 4. Skills are the only truly portable wealth. Land can be seized, money inflated, gold confiscated, businesses nationalized. Skills cannot be taken. Throughout history, people with practical skills survive upheaval. Doctors, engineers, mechanics, craftsmen, and builders can trade labor for food and rebuild anywhere. Aristocrats with vast estates but no skills starved. Skilled workers with nothing rebuilt. In every collapse, from the Soviet Union to Vietnam, those who carried skills in their heads carried their wealth with them. In modern America, most wealth is tied to immovable or restricted assets. Skills remain the only guaranteed portable form of value. Principle 5. Local trust networks outlast institutions. When institutions fail, local relationships endure. In the collapse of the Soviet Union, families, neighbors, and communities shared resources and survived while formal systems failed. In Argentina, neighborhood networks replaced banks. In Lebanon, family and religious networks prevented total breakdown. Before modern institutions, all trade was local and trust-based. When large systems collapse, societies revert to this model. Modern life has left many people institutionally dependent but socially isolated. That fragility becomes fatal in crisis. Those embedded in strong local networks survive. Isolated individuals struggle. The pattern never changes. These 5 principles have survived thousands of years because human nature and mathematics do not change. Hard assets survive. Productive assets endure. Debt destroys. Skills are portable. Local networks outlast institutions. You do not need perfect timing. You do not need to predict the exact moment of collapse. Positioning according to these principles works whether collapse comes soon or decades from now. Ignore principles and rely on tactics, and you gamble that you can time the system perfectly. History shows most people lose that bet.
The only real question is whether you act before the window closes or wish you had after.